We got a special weekend episode of the Locked On Utah Hockey Club episode. Utah Hockey Club versus New York Rangers. We're going to get to that a little bit towards the end of the show, but we're going to get to some stats and info that stood out to us. Things that we saw stood out to us through the first two games of Utah Hockey Club versus Blackhawks and New York Islanders. All on today's episode. Be sure to stay locked in.
You are Locked On Utah Hockey Club, your daily podcast on the Utah Hockey Club, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everyone. This is Locked On Utah Hockey Club, your number one daily podcast on the Utah Hockey Club. I am your host, Robyn Leonio, alongside Tom Callahan. We want to thank everyone for making this show your first listen each and every day. We are available everywhere you get your shows, including on YouTube. We're on SiriusXM, ad-free on Amazon Music. We're doing a little Saturday episode for you guys because we wanted to keep the momentum going as this season is off to a really hot start, Tom. Utah Hockey Club versus New York Rangers. We're going to get to that later, but let's get to a couple things. The first two games, maybe were some things that stood out to us. We're going to get to some stats. We're going to get to all of that, but let's go ahead and kick things off. First of all, what are just some first things that come up on to your mind when I ask you, what stood out to you?
Well, what stands out to me right now is how are we planning the Stanley Cup Parade route? Okay, 2-0. We just have to figure out a route through downtown that ends up at the Delta Center, and we can kick off our Fan Fest celebration there. That's going to be at the end of June, so we got plenty of time to plan this, right? So 2-0, the power play's on fire. Looks really good right now. 66.7% on the power play. Are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah.
Early, that is fantastic. The offense is there right now. Dylan Guenther is there right now. He is only the fifth player. I'm going to drop an early nugget on you. Only the fifth player in NHL history to score 2 goals in each of a franchise's first 2 ever games. So things look pretty good right now. The big kid with the big contract is producing. The offense is producing. The goaltending has looked good to me. And as we talked about, the defense is going to be a work in progress. This team is right where I thought they'd be. But Robyn, honestly, big test coming up. We're going to talk about the Rangers later. But this is a difficult early road trip. But if they come out to the good on this road trip, that bodes really well for the season.
It really does bode really well for the season. And like you said, I think to me, that defense that you mentioned, I think is the huge thing for me that I want to, take out on. And there were some moments in which I was questioning. I'm like, that was not a right defensive move. That should, we're going to see that, right? We're going to see that it's a completely new rebuilt defense. Yeah, sure. Like half the people are technically returners. Jersey's a returner. Kesselring's a returner. Valimaki is a returner. But when you look at the others, you have to figure out how those, how they slot in and what's new, and what's their play style too. You take a look at what Sergachev does. You take a look at what Ian Cole does. All very different.
I think, and we were talking about this a little bit before we hopped on the air here, but so Sergachev's got 3 assists through 2 games. Okay, we knew he was going to produce offensively. That makes sense. He's leading all Utah skaters, 24-26 of ice time per game. That makes sense. Team high shorthanded, although they were shorthanded a lot on Thursday against the Islanders, almost 7 minutes, 6:46. So he's munching the minutes. We knew that Sergachev was going to get thrown in with a chance to be the number 1 defenseman for this team and do those things. I am a little worried about keeping him with Jersey in the long run, though. And, of course, the Marino injury may dictate how this goes. But they're both blocking a lot of shots. Those guys throw their bodies in front of pucks, but I'm worried about the physical contact part of it. There have been some times where I felt like they could have slowed guys up. They could have made contact. They could have thrown the bump. Sometimes when pucks get chipped in, you have a 1-2 count before it becomes interference. That's how they call it for those of you who may not know. You see a guy chip a puck past a defenseman entering the zone. Generally, they give you a 1 and 2 and if you don't make contact in that window, then it becomes an interference call. So that's why a defenseman has to step up right away to be able to hold up that player who just chipped the puck. I would like to see a little bit better job of that. I think teams at times have had it a little too easy on their zone entries, especially when they're doing a little chip and chase. I'd like to see that improve. But you know what? Talking about this defense and especially about Sergachev, it's going to be a little time for him to really find his way, get back comfortable to his game. Remember, he broke his leg last year, missed a ton of time, and has never been the number one guy. He was always kind of number two in Tampa Bay. The other thing, Robyn, is, and again, Rangers tonight, this is the building where it happened. And I don't know if it's going to be in the back of his mind or not. I hope it's not. I hope you don't really think about that kind of stuff, but, he's only human.
I mean, I think the thing, too, what I think could certainly help in this case, and I don't know, maybe, I would sure hope it does, is now the newly minted captain of the Utah Hockey Club only a couple of years ago broke his leg in a season, and then ended up coming back having a he went to he was on the road to recovery fast, right? Clayton Keller was on the road to recovery fast and ended up having a career high year immediately the year after. So maybe it could help a little bit if Keller were to notice something like that, he kind of get kids up to him. It's like, hey, I can understand what you're going through here.
And everybody's different. Everybody heals different. Everybody is mentally different. To me, I don't think the physical part of it is the problem with Sergachev. It will be, sharpening the mental focus again. And there's a difference. When you're an elite athlete, their concentration, their focus is on a different level. And I think that is really the hardest part. You just can't simulate those conditions until you get back into them. So the other thing I do like is they started at home against Chicago. Awesome crowd, great energy, killer experience. Everything was awesome, but it was one game. And now we're going on a road trip. And I love early season road trips for teams because I think it really gives them a chance to bond. It gives them a chance to be just by themselves. Team dinners on the road, on the plane, in the hotel. Guys will break off into their little packs, but for the most part, that's your little family, that's your little coven.
You get a roommate too, right? You get a little hotel roommate too,
right. And in New York, I don't know if Utah is doing it this way, but we used to do it in Nashville, where we literally would stay in Manhattan and go to the 3 different places to play. So we'd stay in Manhattan, and then we would go to play the Islanders and come back. And then we'd play the Rangers, which was technically around the corner, but it still takes an hour to get there, and come back. Yeah. And then we would go play New Jersey and come back. Unless for whatever reason, we would occasionally get a hotel on the island or occasionally get a hotel in Cherry Hill. But for the most part, you stay centrally when you go play those 3 teams. That makes it easier too.
I mean, that certainly would make sense. And I feel like I feel like we've seen, I've seen teams do that a lot. I think I've heard about that a lot, where they kind of stay in a central area, even if it's another another sport or another tri-city area where you can easily kind of get around in those spots. But it'll be I'm curious to see exactly how that goes. They do have that time. He said they do have that time to kind of get together and really bond and focus and all that. And again, I think the other thing too, Tom, as we mentioned, is a lot of this team is still the same from the Arizona Coyotes. So they know each other already. A lot of them do. It's just, I think it's bringing in the new people and kind of bringing them under their wing too.
And there's a decent amount of that goes on. And you know what? The other thing is too, is some guys just go their separate ways in the summer. And then when you come back together, your friends are back and you're like, hey, it's kind of like going back to school. Everybody can relate to the experience of going back to school in the fall, right? That's exactly what it's like. Just because you didn't talk to one of your or 2 or 3 of your friends all summer doesn't mean when you get back in September that you're suddenly not friends anymore. It just means you didn't happen to talk to them in the summer for whatever reason. Now, these guys scatter geographically all over the world. So there are reasons. But it's like going back to school. You have some catching up to do and some, bonding to do and some stories to laugh over. And so I think the early season road trip is a good thing.
It really is. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to keep going on this episode. We're going to talk a little bit more nuggets, a little more stats, things that stood out to us through the first 2 games of the Utah Hockey Club season. And then we are going to preview really quickly Utah Hockey Club versus the New York Rangers. We're going to get to all of that right after this.
And today's episode is brought to you in part by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agreed Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
So, Tom, one of the things that I want to get to, and you kind of mentioned Dylan Guenther at the start of this, and I kind of want to get back to it a little bit. Just specifically one little extra nugget. I need a couple extra nuggets that, right, that got brought up here, and it's really interesting. So, and I saw a stat. I think it was the NHL that posted it about Dylan Guenther's 4 goals. You know how many shots he had?
I don't actually.
8 shots. So he has currently a 50% shooting percentage.
Oh, well, that's sustainable.
Sure, why not?
Minus 40%.
But it's amazing. It is amazing though, right? Like
that is pretty darn good.
It's just like you get like if you want to score it, just hand it to Guenther. He's got it taken care of.
Sometimes, I mean, Robyn, it happens that way in sports, right? You know, you look at, okay, this is a very recent, very famous example to give people, but Steph Curry in the Olympics. They just threw him the ball. And I mean, people were trying to rip his appendages off and he was still hitting shots.
Yeah.
He was the hero of that fourth quarter of the gold medal basketball game, but it just happens that way sometimes. You know, you've got it. You're hitting your shots. If you're in baseball, you're a hitter that can't miss. If you're a pitcher who knows that, man, I got all my pitches working today. Does it happen every day? No. But when it does happen and you can carry it sometimes for a little while, you go with it. And I think that Guenther is in an early window of excitement. He's coming off the contract extension. He's pumped up. And you know what? The other thing that's beautiful about this, Robyn, is that it's going to create room on the ice for everybody else. Because now coaches are thinking to themselves, opposing coaches, who are we matching up with? Are we matching up with Dylan Guenther all of a sudden? We did not plan to match up with Dylan Guenther initially, but somebody's got to stop him, you would think.
Yeah, you would think, right? And it really is going to actually completely change the game. And yeah, sure, that's going to end up meaning that Gunther's going to slow down at some point, and it's kind of
he's on pace for 164 goals. I think
that
it can happen.
Yeah, it's going to happen. But no, it's amazing. It is funny though, because I actually talked about I was at work one day and I was like, you know what, I'm sure would still could be a decent value on a pick would be if you can pick Dylan Guenther for the Rocket Richard Trophy. But and again, as we talked about, all of this is not the most sustainable, but you take a look at that trajectory, it is a good sign. It is a good sign that he is going the fight, especially as we talked about in the previous episodes, Tom, of this coming after the contract extension was put in place. Like it's just like, all right, so we're feeling good. Like he didn't, like, you can imagine he could have easily asked for more if we saw this happening now. Like
at morning skate at Madison Square Garden today, Andre Tourigny said that he hadn't really detected much of a vibe change in this team. And to me, that's a good thing. I think that, keep it on the even keel. Keep it the way it's going. I like that news. To me, I like that because the question was asked and framed in terms of swagger. Have you noticed an increase in swagger? And he thought about it for a second. And he's like, no, I haven't.
Yeah.
And I think that that's an excellent thing, because that means this team has an identity, and that this team has a vision of who they are, what they are, and how they're going to execute that vision. And so when you go through the lineup, and again, I love the depth of this Utah Hockey Club. I think it's one of their most important features. I think, to me, Robyn, talking about where this team is right now through 2 games, and we're throwing out some nice little nugs to support the argument here, but remember how I said if they overachieved, I think they could be a playoff team?
Yeah.
There are 80 more games to go. However, this looks pretty good so far, because they had 1 game where they gave up a lot of goals and still won anyway, the Islanders. Then they had 1 game where they were better than a team they needed to be better than, the Blackhawks. Got a little help from some goalposts along the way, but it also, hey, maybe you think we got the early season horseshoe for a little bit of luck. I think those are all good things to me. I really like the way the feeling works out for that, because that's how you build your team confidence.
It really is. So I'm confident that this team can continue to push that out. And look, they're looking great to me. I think everything to me is pointing to that they can at least keep up this competitiveness, right? We talked about on post game for the Islanders, the resilience of this team. That was an identity that the Coyotes have had for a while, right? And again, it still is the same team. And I want to bring that up too, because someone mentioned it. Someone said, "Oh, this Utah Hockey Club, they seem like to be one of the most fun team to watch right now." And that kind of goes back to what you were saying, right? Where it's not much of a different team in terms of vibes from previously, which to me is interesting, Tom, because no one talked about that when they were in Arizona. Why? Because there was a smokescreen.
Well, there were 12 smoke screens.
Yes, there were 12 smoke screens. No one wanted to touch Arizona. Everyone was just making fun of Arizona because it was Arizona, right? Which to me does suck, as someone that has lived in Arizona for 9 years. And I love this place, but with Utah, it's like they're not getting that anymore, and they're getting the love. They're finally feeling that love.
Yes,
I think that's, to me, I think that's going to make the world of a difference down the road.
I agree with you. And let me give you another recent NHL example of why this, as a team, like, you're walking into most rinks as the David, not the Goliath, when you're the Utah Hockey Club. But and anytime you get a chance to watch a Battle of Alberta, Calgary against Edmonton, you absolutely should, because those games are always fantastic. They have been for 40 years. What happens? Edmonton builds a 4-1 lead. Edmonton, my pick to go to the Stanley Cup from the West this year. Edmonton looks unbeatable early, running all over the Flames, who are not a playoff team this year. And what happens? Calgary has an attitude. They don't quit, never say die. They come back and win. They come back and win that game. They had no business coming back on a team that is going to be in the Stanley Cup final this year. But they came back from down 4-1 to win 6-5. And so Utah has that, or at least they appear to have that. We'll find out when they're really challenged and they go through that stretch at some point in the season that everybody goes through, where you lose 3, 4, 5 in a row and you're feeling bad about yourself. But how are they going to lose those games? Are they going to lose them close? Are they going to lose them tight? Are they going to be pushing? Or are they getting blown out 6-1? That's going to make a big difference. That test hasn't happened yet, but the early season indicators are, to me, that they might have a little bit of that juice, and I love it.
It really does show it could be that way, and I think that's the cool thing. And again, it's going to go back to what I said earlier and what you said earlier, much earlier in this week. The resilience is how competitive they're going to be. How much fight are they going to have in them every single game? We'll find out as we go through the remainder of the 82 games. Speaking of which, or say remainder of the 80 games, because the 2 games in with 80 games remaining, including the New York Rangers tonight, which we're going to get to right after this. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get in a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. You get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Once again, that's $200 in bonus bets when you place your first $5 bet. You don't even have to win on that $5 bet. You just got to place it and you get those bonus bets. That's all on FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Alrighty, Tom. New York Rangers hosting now the Utah Hockey Club. It's going to be a fun game to watch.
Yes. Oh, it definitely will. And it's the biggest test this team has faced in this young season. Robyn, allow me to hit everyone listening, watching, tuning us in, no matter how you are. But if you're on YouTube, you're watching us. So let's do a little NHL history lesson. The league was 6 teams. That's why they're called the original 6. The original 6 teams up until the 1967-68 season, when the NHL then expanded from 6 to 12 teams. So since 1967, that is what has been called the expansion era in hockey.
Yep.
And now we're up to 32. So talking about the expansion era, Robyn, there is only one other expansion team to come into the league in all of that time that has ever won its first 3 games. Do you know who it is?
The expansion teams that have
An
won
expansion team that won its first 3 games.
I want to say it's Vegas.
It is Vegas. Well done. Vegas is the only team in that entire time to start 3-0, and Utah could become the second if they beat the Rangers tonight. So kind of a nice little, another nugget, since we're on the theme of nuggets here in this show. But Utah coming in, this is their biggest test against the Rangers. To me, the Rangers have, they're probably a coin flip for me. I think Rangers-Panthers is your Eastern Conference final.
Yeah.
This year in the playoffs. Florida looks really good early, but I think the Rangers are special. They're talented. They have the goaltender in the league, in my opinion, in Shesterkin, outside of Connor Hellebuck. They have a lot of stuff going for them. But it's early. And of course, there's always a chance to catch a team napping a little bit if they underestimate you. Not that I think the Rangers will, but it's Saturday night in Madison Square Garden. Utah's going to have some nerves. It's a tough place to play. This is a big litmus test for me.
It certainly is. It's going to be a fun one to watch, right? And I feel like that's the thing, is taking a look at what they have coming their way and everything like that. If Utah has the same offensive prowess as they've been going through the last 2 days, again, 10 goals in 2 games. I mean, I'm like, it's going to be a close game. I certainly think with the defense, the still defensive struggles I think we've been seeing, it's going to give the Rangers the edge. Because again, the Rangers are the stronger team, much, much stronger team. Plus, as you mentioned, with Shesterkin in net, it does add that extra line of going to be hard to get by.
The Rangers power play can be ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to put the penalty kill to the test. So it's going to expose the warts there. They will expose the warts on defense. You talk about Kreider, you talk about Panarin, Jacob Trouba. There's so much talent on this Rangers team. They will expose you. And so you're going to find out where the holes are. You can't slough off contact on these guys. You must hold up. You must win the battles in the corners. You have to go in and just every battle, like, you need to win this puck, life or death. They're a hard team to play against. And again, they're going to have last change. So if matchups come into it at all, they will have the advantage there. So, to me, it's about starting a possession, which means being better in the faceoff circle. And it also means being better in your defensive zone. I still think Utah's going to score their goals. I think they'll get a couple. But tonight, I talked previously about the race to 3 in the NHL. Tonight's game is absolutely the race to 3. I don't know what the over-under is, but 5 goals in this game would shock me.
I will actually bring up our little the odds for today's game.
Okay.
Utah Hockey Club are the underdogs by 1.5. The money line set at 164, minus 200 for the Rangers. So they do have them as a pretty heavy favorite. Total points is at 5.5.
I'm under on that. Not even close. Like that's
Yeah,
to me, that feels like an
I
easy
would agree
pick.
with you. I think the under is a pretty comfortable place to be on that one.
Well, unless the Rangers offense goes and really just, puts a bunch of pucks in the net. So let me back that statement up. What I mean by race to 3 is if you're Utah, if you're going to win this game, Utah needs to score 3 times and allow 2. But the Rangers are capable of putting 5, 6, 7, 8 up.
Yeah.
So that's how Utah can win this game. The Rangers could win this game 6-2, 6-5, and they don't care. But I just don't think the Rangers are giving up 5. I don't see a world in which they do that. If you get your 3, you better hold them to 2 or you're not winning.
I would totally agree with that. Come on, imagine getting that much past Shesterkin and this earlier in the season. Like,
no, at any point in the season.
True.
They're a tough team to play against.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, totally right about that. So it'll be interesting to see. So I know.
I don't know that I'd.
So I know
you were
saying
to lay money on. This is a tough game to lay money
on. But I know
you
you said you would take the under on that one. But I'm gonna give you a little bit of an opportunity for a little bit, like kind of a little bit of a hybrid of two-part question here. First of all, is kind of like in terms of in that theme of looking at FanDuel bets. If you were to make an anytime goal scorer, who would you be? Who would you pick? And 2, on either side, who is your biggest player you are watching?
Well, I think anytime goal scorer, you got to stay with Guenther. A hot stick. Got to ride that right now. He's shooting the puck. He's getting his opportunities and his chances. I just like his game so far early this season. I think he's fired up. I think that continues. For the Rangers, so I'm going to watch 2 players. I always watch the goaltenders, but there's an extra reason why I'm watching Shesterkin in this one. If he's starting, which I actually haven't checked the starters, that's on me, but I assume Saturday night at home, he's starting.
Yeah.
Especially this early in the season. Contract status with Shesterkin up in the air. He is going to get, when it's all said and done, the biggest contract ever for a goaltender in the history of the league. He's going to blow Carey Price's $10.5 million per out of the water. And the rumor is he's already turned down more than that. Could he be looking upwards of $12 million a season? But this, the longer it goes, and it might not be there yet, but will become a distraction. And the Rangers need to put it to bed. So I'm going to be watching Shesterkin to see where his focus is. But the guy, if you're new to the sport, or even if you're not, if you're new to the Rangers, you haven't really paid much attention to the East. I love Artemi Panarin, but the guy who can make a huge difference in the game is Chris Kreider. Kreider is not the pretty player that Panarin is, but he is the get to the front of the net, deflect pucks, stir the pot. He is the heart and soul player.
I certainly see that. Yeah. But
so that's who I'm watching.
Yeah. So we are running a little bit out of time on this episode, though, Tom. So I'm going to kind of end this preview with a question for you, and I'll go ahead and give you my prediction. What's your score prediction of this game?
Ooh. Well, if Utah wins, it's 3-2. If the Rangers win, I'm going to say 4-1.
4-1.
So I guess I'm still staying at 5 goals, aren't I?
You're still staying right at that under.
I'm on the under.
You're staying on the under. For me, I'm with you. If Utah wins, it is 3-2. If I am going to add again, I will be going over though if the Rangers win. But just not by a lot. It's going to be 4-2 Rangers. With that 4th goal being like an empty net at the end because Utah tries to make a push.
So that said, this game is either going to be 1-0 or 10-9. Just because that's where we're predicting it.
That's how the universe likes to treat us, right?
Yes, that's exactly it.
But that's going to be it for today's weekend episode of the Locked On Utah Hockey Club episode. If you guys liked what you heard, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your shows, including on YouTube, SiriusXM. If you are a Prime subscriber, you can listen to us on Amazon Music ad-free. Don't forget to interact with us on social media too. We are on Facebook, on Instagram, Threads, and X at LO_NHL Utah. I am personally at Robyn_Leonio. Tom Callahan is at Callahan on air. Also, don't forget to join our Insider Text Club at 801-760-9033. That's 801-760-9033. New exclusive content is starting to be brought in now, Tom. You had Tom's takeaways from the New York Islanders game. He's going to have some more coming your way. We're going to have some more stuff even coming in, flooding in as we continue through this season. Plus, you get exclusive access to our insider mailbag. So if you want to be a part of it, be sure to join. Once again, 801-760-9033 to get in on all that action. Your first 14 days will always be free. Once again, thanks everyone for listening to today's episode, and we'll see you guys next time.